Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of The Revolutionaries. I'm Jeff Damaris.
I'm Tina Duryea.
And I'm Shannon Riley.
And this week, quite topical for this week, we're going to be talking about the war on expertise. Just a few days ago, Dr. Anthony Fauci was hauled in front of the Senate committee to testify regarding the COVID-19 epidemic. Very topical thing to be talking about now, 6 years after the epidemic started, or the pandemic started, rather. Hey, I guess if you have nothing else to offer the American public, I suppose some sort of exaggerated red meat nonsense is what you got. But I think it kind of plays towards a bigger issue that we have as well in the country, which is people rejecting expert advice in favor of whatever political biases they may have. So we're going to have that discussion today. And so let's start with the discussion about Dr. Fauci himself. He obviously, prior to the pandemic, had been the doctor in charge of the American government's response to any sort of pandemic or any sort of health emergency. And going back to the 80s. So he'd been there for a very, very long time. And so now an actual pandemic hits us in 2020. We have the single worst person we could possibly have as president of the United States at the time.
At least we have a competent Secretary of Health and Human Services.
Yes, that's right.
We're in much worse shape right now.
Yes, right. That happened today. Oh boy, oh boy. So I want to have the discussion. Let's just start it off with this kind of a roundtable thing about Dr. Fauci and the treatment that he received. He pleaded the Fifth Amendment right to not self-incriminate, not because he did anything wrong, but because anything he said might have been turned against him. So let's just start with your observations, Tina.
I mean, I was floored. I mean, I had a big family event, and so I wasn't really focused on what was going on in the news. And all of a sudden, I see Fauci in the news. I'm like, why is Fauci in the news? I mean, the guy's retired, right? Why are we talking about him? And then I posted just this little sort of innocuous thing online where I'm like, why is he in the news? Why is he in front of Congress? And, all the people on the left were like, oh, it's a witch hunt and he had to testify. But then I got a lot of right-wing trolls. And oh my God, the comments that they were leaving on my post were just insane. And I was wondering what reality they were living in, because I lived through COVID, just like all of the people commenting. And it was like we were in two different realities. It was very unsettling, actually.
Yeah. I have a hard time with COVID, with everything, because at the time I was stuck home with 4 kids. I was attempting to do, all of those other things. But also at the time I'm the DTC chair.
Yeah.
So I'm having to field, I guess, frustration from our Board of Education members.
Yeah.
Who were being at the Board of Ed, and it's Connecticut had the masking mandate, and people were showing up and just screaming about not being anti-mask and shouldn't have to you're taking away my parental rights, etc. So when an entire block of people fell in love with a man who literally lies every single time he gets in front of a microphone.
Yeah. My kind of observation, I was a very similar situation where I was home a lot because they closed our office.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't go in there for a while, and then you could only go in with previous permission. So you had to go down and get an okay to come in. It was a really crazy time. And then my kids were still in school. My son was in 5th grade going to 6th, and my daughter was just finished 8th grade. Was just finishing 8th grade. And so I was in a similar situation where you're at home and you're trying to figure out what to do. The mask thing was always very mysterious to me because in a lot of places in the world, particularly in Asia, they'll wear masks. If someone is sick, if someone themselves is sick, they'll just wear it.
It's part of what they do.
It's to mitigate getting other people sick. You're not wearing the mask for yourself. You're wearing it for other people.
So it's sort of being what's it called? The social contract.
Right.
We don't want to make other people sick.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so when I would hear people complaining about it, it wasn't because I think that they genuinely thought, "Oh God, this is awful."
Yeah.
Because wearing a mask during a pandemic, and a lot of hindsight goes on with this discussion.
Yeah.
Because at the time when this was happening, nobody knew what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
Like nobody understood it. Like we had not had a major pandemic like that in 100 years.
Yeah.
So we didn't, this was the first time with modern medicine in the United States. This is the first time with modern medicine that we've ever had to confront this sort of thing. And you had people that were experts that were there. And I think in a normal situation, it would have been handled normally. It might have been handled more effectively, and the situation might have been mitigated better. But we had a very terrible administration in charge at the time. But the president was more worried about his poll numbers in the stock market than he was about the health of the American public, which made things worse and ended up becoming a compounding problem. And you had, as we touched upon in a previous show too, you had the propagandization, that's what of millions of people that didn't just start when the pandemic started. It started way before that. And the second that it was bad for Trump to have this pandemic happening and people were inconvenienced, it was going to hurt him in the November election. So let's try to pretend this isn't happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing in March and April of 2020, trucks filled with wooden caskets of people who were dying.
Just body bags.
Yeah. And body bag. Yeah. It's to me, like it was real. It was happening and nobody knew what the hell was going on. And the first step in in response to a pandemic is try to prevent it from spreading further and further.
Actually, I'm going to challenge that. The first step to a pandemic is to make sure it doesn't happen.
Well,
but here's the thing is that, and this is where I'm going to put some blame on Trump. I'm going to put a lot of blame on Trump because Trump, there used to be an office in China operated by the CDC that was supposed to watch for pandemics as they formed, as they started to, right when they're bubbling up, because that's when you nip them in the butt. And Trump, being such a brilliant person, he defunded that office and it went from a staff of about 50 down to about 10. And the foremost expert on this sort of stuff, he actually fired the summer before the pandemic. So it was like a perfect storm. And so what you had, like, I was actually doing business with a company in Wuhan when this was happening. And I remember having a conversation in January. They're like, we can't get the product sample because there's some sort of thing going on. And we were all kind of like, that's so weird. What's going on? And then in February, they started shutting down, like it got to Europe before it came to us. They were shutting it down. Had Hillary Clinton, the overprepared, overqualified, smart woman, been president, she would have actually had people in China working with the Chinese people back in December when it was starting to get off the ground to prevent it from spreading to the world. And we probably wouldn't have had a pandemic in the first place. And that's just like, I will die on that hill.
Yes. Yeah. I that's very true. He did do that. He did cut a lot of
which he's done again, by the way.
He's done it again because nobody learns their lessons better than Donald Trump does. And as I say, these had very real world consequences and very, very much happening in real time. And when we didn't know, I remember having to go. I was getting gas somewhere. I had gone. I don't remember where I went, but I had gotten gas, and you had people were putting on rubber gloves
Yeah.
and the mask and the whole thing, and you had to be rubbing every,
I
wiping
had
every-
gloves on when I went grocery shopping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we didn't know, because we did not know. And the interesting thing about it, and not to get away from the expertise portion, because I think this all kind of works together anyway. I have always felt that if Donald Trump had responded to that pandemic responsibly, like a normal leader might, to get everyone together on the same page, we'll get through this kind of thing and get done, like the real leadership work that's required, I think he would have coasted to re-election, because that's what people would want to see. But the man was completely incapable of that. He could not do it. At the moment when leadership was absolutely essential, he couldn't do it. And then we re-elected him. Hey,
And he couldn't do any unifying too. That was part of it.
No, because that's where Fauci came in. Fauci became the fall guy for people, for Trump being wrong about it, for the consequences of it all. And, when in a little bit, we're going to talk about how that process goes. Scientific process is, particularly when a pandemic happens, you don't know, you have to try to figure out what's happening.
Yeah.
And the first thing you're going to do is, if you say, well, we didn't really need to do this or that or this or that. Okay, let's just for argument's sake say that's the case. Just for argument's sake. At the beginning, you have to try anything because you don't know what the scope of the thing is.
Yeah.
And if you're reading on Fauci's diaries, which is what this whole ridiculous kangaroo court was the other day, they didn't know, but they had to, it wasn't like, well, we don't know, we're just going to make life awful for everybody. It's like, we don't know, we have to take preventative measures first and do what we can to stop this from happening. But the kangaroo court happened. And that's the thing I don't quite understand, I think, more than anything else. And this really it's bizarre. You'll have people that are saying now, and this is not just politicians, but now the people that listen to them and people that listen to Fox News and that sort of stuff, saying that Fauci should be arrested. He's a criminal. And I just look at it and I go, the guy is an immunologist. He's trying to mitigate a pandemic in real time with a president that doesn't care about it at all, just cares about how it affects him politically, and is ignoring most of the advice that he gets. And in fact, the president is advising people to
ivermectin,
or bleach, a cleaning, like a cleaning. They can put it in the lungs, and I mean, like, this is what he says, or a light, a special. He's literally saying this, and I remember the other doctor, what was her name?
I picture her.
Burks, I think, in the end. And seeing her response as Trump is saying this stuff, and you could see the soul leaving her body as he's saying this. And it's ridiculous that here we are 6 years later, or whatever it is, and we're talking about it because they're still dragging this thing out to say, hey, let's put Anthony Fauci out and, try to have him arrested for this. I mean, it makes no sense.
But here's the thing that I just all of a sudden had this thought. Like, if we really wanted to talk about who was to blame, the Democrats should have done the same thing to Donald Trump that the Republicans are doing to Fauci now. And they should have dragged Trump in front of Congress and run him over the coals. But they just wanted to get on with life. And the Republicans relitigating this is just insane.
Well, that's, I think, why we're in a situation where when this version of the nightmare is over, you can't just like, let's just move on. Let's just move on. Like, you have to be able to say this can't happen again. And not we had to wear masks in school, but come on, folks, it's a small thing. Okay. I was more concerned about people dying.
Me too.
Okay.
Weird.
And it wasn't, everyone was saying, well, it was just, it
was a flu.
It was just a really bad flu, and it was only affecting people that were in bad health or that were older or whatever. And I was like, that's bullshit, because I know people who died of it who were not old people, nor were they particularly health-wise vulnerable. But there were older people that did. we're going to take a quick break, and we come back. We're going to talk about a little bit more about the actual pandemic itself. I know this is really a hot topic, pandemic from 6 years ago, but it's important because they're dragging this shit out now. I mean, they have nothing else to talk about. They have no other things to do. So they're going to do a circus court to say, hey, look, Anthony Fauci, your 85-year-old ass is going to come in front of us, and we're going to berate you for trying to do your best to prevent a pandemic from getting worse and worse while we had the biggest clown show of a human being as president. Okay. Anyway, we'll be back in a second. Okay, so we're back. So yeah, as I was saying, the idea of bringing this guy here for a kangaroo court to try to undermine not just him, but the idea of expertise, the idea of people who know what they're talking about, in favor of charlatans, of people who are selling ridiculous supplements, Mike Lindell and his nonsense.
But they're actually, one of the things I saw is they're accusing Fauci of doing that. It comes back to whatever you did that was bad, you accuse the other people of doing. So they're like, oh, Fauci was making money on the pandemic. And I'm like,
right.
Where?
Yeah.
Where?
Yeah. No, I didn't. That's where I think I get most upset about, is the projection that takes place with this. And it happens across the board, because what has happened as a result of the pandemic and as a result of the drilling of Fauci and all of that sort of nonsense is that it makes it more likely that something happens now in the future, that these experts are going to just disappear.
If we have a pandemic next year or the year after that, which would be on par for course with, this monster, we're actually, like as I said, we're in worse shape now because, one, whoever the next Fauci is going to not want to put their neck out because they see what's going to happen to them. We've gotten rid of all of the experts, and we've made all of the universities have lost their research funding for this sort of stuff. And now people are even more resistant to vaccination. So if the next pandemic happens and there's a vaccine, all these Trumpers aren't going to take it. And the whole anti-vax thing, it's anti-science, right?
Yeah.
It's anti-community.
Yeah.
Because vaccines are about herd immunity.
Yeah.
And it's about protecting those that cannot take a vaccine. It's about making sure that, we're eradicating something, or at least mitigating the potentiality of someone being exposed to something that could kill them because they are immune compromised.
It's a piece of the conspiracy culture that we have about us. And this isn't to say that some conspiracies don't actually exist, but this is to say that a lot of conspiracies that sound outlandish are outlandish for a reason. That they're putting tractors in our arms. I remember that one.
Oh yeah, the vaccine. I forgot about that. Yeah, but there's also let's just talk about conspiracy for a little second. One of the craziest conspiracies was that they all said that everybody who got the vaccine would be dead by June of 2026. You remember that one? Or July. They had a specific date.
July.
Yeah. So I guess we're actually.
Oh, I survived.
Actually, what the reality is that we actually are all dead and this is hell.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
And that actually makes more sense.
That makes more sense.
Okay, I'll go with that. That's probably, I think it's as likely as any other out. I mean, there was also, I remember watching a video of somebody saying, look what it did. They put a spoon up to their arm.
Oh, God.
Oh, no. That was with children. So if you don't have children, you do not understand how they can sometimes just be sticky. They just kind of have a film that coats their skin because they've been running around, they're dirty or whatever. So putting the spoon on the little boy or whatever, and having it stick to his skin. Yeah.
And you can't even, the whole thing is so.
Stuck a spoon to our forehead at one point.
The whole thing is so disingenuous in the first place. That's the thing, is that even today, when they're talking about any subject, I think they really kind of tested a lot of this nonsense out.
Yeah.
It's let's see how far we can get away with just bullshitting everybody. And so now you'll get this sort of pretend the reflecting pool was vandalized.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh no, they cut it up with a box cutter, 350 feet in the water. Yeah. and they put charges against the guy. They brought charges against him, and then they had to drop the charges because obviously they were fucking nonsense.
Yep.
So they dropped these charges, and how again? It's you say, well, what's that have to do with the pandemic? What's that to do with Fauci? And so it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's just it's lies compounded on top of lies, and like for the vaccination, for example. Now, for years, conspiracy theorists have been working on this. Vaccines are really this sort of thing. It causes autism or whatever this sort of stuff is. Well, there's more cases of autism now than there ever have been before. Well, two things. First, there's more people than there ever have been before. And secondly, our scientific community, our medical community, are better at diagnosing these things and understanding how these things work. So sometimes you have more cases like that because you understand. Speaking of cases, I remember they would say, well, there's more cases of COVID and someone dies. We said, well,
we should stop testing for COVID.
We should stop testing for it. Or they died, but they had this condition. They actually had pneumonia, and they died of pneumonia, not of COVID. Well, they died of the pneumonia they got from COVID. Or they had a heart attack, and they died of the heart attack, not of COVID. But the COVID brought upon the weakened systems that allowed for the heart attack to take place. I mean, just disingenuous nonsense. And the thing that is the biggest mystery to me is that I get wanting to control people and have people follow the line no matter what the hell happens. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. This is how it is. This is it. That's it. You're going to believe what Trump says. You're going to believe whatever Fox News says. You believe whatever now Newsmax, whatever other lunatic outfit there is. Okay, fine. But what is the end goal here in going after a guy like Fauci? What is the end goal here of saying vaccines are bad when vaccines have been designed to help people not necessarily not get an illness? Some of it is preventative, like polio vaccine. But some of it, like the COVID vaccine it wasn't so much as to keep you from ever getting it because it was a mutating illness.
Yeah.
But it was to mitigate
the body's response.
What happens to,
Do you guys know the origin story of the anti-vax movement? It actually is a Russian thing.
Really?
And it was something that Russia started decades ago, and to basically, and maybe this, I don't know how much of this is documented, but some of it is documented. I'm not actually completely on a conspiracy theory here, because I've read articles in reputable sources about this, and I read about it before COVID.
Yeah.
Because like we look at the measles outbreak that we're having now, and the goal was, because Putin hates the United States, and the goal was to destabilize the United States and Western democracies as a whole. So the anti-vax, anti-science, anti-university movement all has its origins in Russia and Putin's desire to destabilize Western democracy.
Beautiful.
And he's done, give the man some credit.
He
is really good at destroying Western democracy.
I mean, right now he's good at destroying the Russian army too. But,
I think he doesn't mind as long as we go down with him.
Yeah. That's going to be fun. And I do think that for those people that spread it, so you have, there's always these grifters. So you have Mike Lindell was a grifter. Alex Jones before he got, more or less deplugged, I guess, from relevance. He would always have these ridiculous supplements on. Even Joe Rogan does that sort of stuff. And so there's like this sort of pseudoscience that they're talking about, you take horse pills that get rid of
I just told you to give your dog mushrooms.
yeah. But that's different. That was different. That's for that. There's holistic. There's holistic medicine, and then there's quackery.
Yeah.
Okay. And what you see then those ridiculous things that they push is quackery, and we have now in our ranking public health in the United States, you have RFK Jr., who's a quack. I mean, not a quack, he's not a doctor, but he's a crackpot. Okay. He's a crackpot.
I'll go with that.
And then, Dr. Oz.
Definitely.
I mean, Dr. Oz was shilling this nonsense on his show. When he had his show on, it would be all about this miracle cure. Now, you're a doctor. You're a medical doctor.
Has he been like disbarred? It's not called disbarred, but there's got to be something where you have.
I don't know that his he hasn't. I don't know that his medical license has been revoke.
Okay.
I think
But I'm
Dr.
like,
Phil's
when
think
Oprah
it was,
decides that you're no longer like okay, like that should be enough for people. Like, yeah,
I mean, look, I'd like to hear a little bit more from her about this stuff too, because like she brought these people into our midst.
yeah,
I like say something about it. So, it's one thing, that she has no, I guess there's no real responsibility for having to say anything. She could say something, not say something. That's her right decision to do it. But, I think it would help a lot if she says, hey, this Dr. Oz guy, it's not like, it's not the way I remember or something like that. Just
Yeah.
something to say like, look, I think when people are in important positions of responsibility, they, accountability is important, is important. Whether or not you're a public, politician or you're just influencing an
or
influenceable person.
an
And
actual expert.
yeah,
In a way, you could say that Oprah was like an
And
influencer.
she's an
Yeah.
influencer.
Yeah,
Right.
even before
Yeah.
we had such a thing as
Yeah.
influencers. And she wasn't the only one, but she was
No.
definitely the most successful.
yes. And I mean, a lot of what we're dealing with today is a reflection of celebrity culture and people deciding, well, this famous person says this, these experts say this. I'm going to rely on the famous person because I know who they are. I've seen them on TV. They played a doctor.
Here's looking at
know?
you, Jenny McCarthy.
Yeah, right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, in I don't know what it is. It's something in the human psyche, and not for everybody, but maybe it's something that we're all potentially susceptible to. Is that when you see someone who is well known, the assumption perhaps is that they're well known for a good reason. That maybe
Or
they
that
have
they have
better insight, or
access.
better, yeah,
Yeah, or that they have access to information that you're not privileged to because they lead a privileged life.
right. But they're running around circles that know, which obviously is crazy.
But I do think that this is also, again, going back to like decades worth of undermining our institutions and academics and science and when I was growing up, you had you were taught in school to kind of respect science and the scientific method and doing research not online but like actually going to the library and looking at microfiche.
Yeah.
Research was hard, which is actually why people put value in it. Now you can research online like in 2 seconds, and so it's so easy. People don't value research. That's real research.
That's a good point. That's a very good point, because everybody then, instead of having actual experts, everybody's an expert.
Yeah, everybody's
Their
an
own
expert.
view. It's like, well, like you hear the line, I did my own research. I do your own research.
Don't do your own research, people.
If you don't,
do not do your own research.
Yeah. If you, I mean, it's okay to kind of have an understanding of it, but understand your limitations on what you can know and what you don't know versus to what someone who's been studying this thing for 8-10 years or whatever the hell it's been, or has a career of it.
And also, like, you have to be able to discern the types of media that you're getting your information from.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a whole difference of getting something from like a medical journal than getting it off of Google AI.
Yeah.
Or or even an article from like USA Today that's not relying on fact. And like I think that the whole concept that do your own research means going to Google and typing in something. Google wants to give you the answer it thinks you want.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't realize about Google and all these search engines, is that they're not how you do research. So if you do want to do your own research, okay, fine. Go to a fucking library
Right.
and do your research. Don't go online.
Or if here's the other thing too, is that the online tools can be used if used properly. So it isn't just getting up whenever you get kicked up into a Google search. It is diving in. So I'll give you an example. So for me, I was looking into information last year on a local municipal water and sewer issue. And I had to go look up issues with state law and things like that. And I could go the traditional route, go to the libraries, but I wouldn't know where to even start.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know where to begin.
So the librarians for.
Right. Well, we still have them, folks. Well, we still have them. So I went to chat. Now, you didn't really use chat before this. I was like, I'm very skeptical of it, and I still am. I'm still very careful how I use it. So I asked the thing, hey, I'm looking for this information on this, and it gives me this. But I know that I can't really trust it. I don't know what the hell it's actually giving me, because I do know that sometimes it gives you incorrect information. So I ask it to give me the citations, cite me the statutes. So in this case, it was Connecticut state law. So I wanted the statutes. So I went and followed it from there to the statutes. I didn't go like to another website to just summarize the statute.
Yeah, you went.
I went to the link. The link sent me to the state of Connecticut website where the statute is actually in, and I read the statute itself. Okay, so because it gave me what part of the statute was, and I read it, and I read the full thing, and it took a long time. That's the thing about research. It takes time. That's why not everyone's an expert, because you have to go and do the work, and the work can take a long time. I'm just looking for a particular part of a statute on water and sewer law in Connecticut, and it took me hours to do it with using AI, because the AI is just a tool to help you get a pathway there. It is not the answer. Okay. So when people are looking at trying to find out about what works for a particular ailment that somebody has, COVID, for example, you don't go online and go look at, this, a YouTube short of somebody saying, the greatest thing that ever happened with my COVID research, it told me that I could use this, and it's like, a bar of chocolate or something. I mean, like, that's not, that you have to go look. That's why experts are required. And that's why the attack on an expert like Fauci is so unbelievably dangerous for what bodes for this country. With that, we'll take a break, and we'll be back in a minute. Shannon, while we were on our break, had a nice point that she was discussing, and I actually want to let her talk about it.
So you were kind of like prepping for this session, and it was like, well, how do we combat this? And obviously, Mr. Chair, like education is the piece. For every single degree that I completed, there was always a class that was literally on research for like whatever degree I was completing about, how do you go and find the texts and resources that you need? How do you evaluate that they're the actually giving you truthful information, and kind of going through that? And I think that that's like something that is really important. Like we've discussed, how do you make sure that you're getting your news from like a reputable source? How do you look up what these statistics are? Now I've totally gotten off track here, but that's the thing. And also and if we're talking about AI, there are courses that are popping up on how do you use AI effectively, because it's not just, it's how do you get AI to remove the bias, or
AI is just inherently biased.
It is inherently biased, but there are search terms that you can put in that can help remove some of that. Not always, but Tina, you mentioned earlier about librarians. The library media specialists, they literally spend their entire career dealing with information. Whether that is,
we need more librarians.
We do need more librarians. We need more researchers. We need these people that are able to think critically, because critical thinking is a skill. It's not always an innate talent.
Right.
It is something that you need to teach yourself to do. It's something that you constantly have to check your own biases. To make sure that you're not only searching out one type of answer. We go back to the scientific method. When science is proven wrong, because we thought the world was flat, then we discovered, the world is not flat. And it was people were constantly still testing those things, trying to figure that out. And it's like, you know, if you're trying to think about like, you know, who these sort of, you know, junk cures, who's touting that information?
Right.
I mean, like the whole thing with like the, you know, horse dewormer.
Yeah,
Ivermectin, like, you know, that's still a thing that
people
that Republicans are fighting in, you know, certain
Right.
states to be able to buy over the counter. Like, that you can purchase it over the counter so that
without having to go into the
With-
horse store.
yeah. And I'm like, what are you people doing? Like, first off, we don't put like the same things in our body that we put into our animals.
Yeah, I'm not a horse.
I think it's like, and there's actually, it's really sad because I've heard about this maybe a year or so ago of somebody who had cancer,
Mhm.
and he treated himself with ivermectin, and he died. And that makes me feel like, okay, these people should be held liable for spreading these
false information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
and
agree with that. Yes.
you know, I again, I love librarians, but I also think that instead of we have to teach kids how to use AI, but I think we also have to teach kids without internet.
Yeah.
Internet at all. So like there's like this movement in school. I'm a friend who's a teacher in New York City, and her school has implemented this thing where you don't have your phone with you at the school. And it took a little bit time for people to get used to it, but the kids are more focused, they are learning better, and they're learning critical thinking
Mhm.
a little bit better. And I mean, all of us rely too much on tech and the internet, and it's trained our brains, even those of us who value critical thinking, it's trained us to be stupid. And I was so like, this is like even something like GPS, right? Everyone's like, how did you get around before, you know, your Google Maps, right?
Yeah.
And I've driven up here now, I guess 4 or 5 times. Not quite, but like, and the last time I was up here on the way home, I normally just put GPS in so I can know if there's traffic, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't have much use on my phone, so I turned it off, and I've done this drive a couple times now, and it's a pretty simple drive. It's not like it's rocket science, and it was so weird to drive without GPS, and that I was much better driving because I was being very engaged. I was reading the signs. I was like, okay, I'm looking for a sign for, you know, Route 15. I'm looking for the sign that says go to Bridgeport, and it really hit home for me how much I rely on the internet and my GPS maps when I don't need to. I actually have a good sense of direction. I don't need to do this shit, but I do.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned the maps thing because that's, again, that reads into like how things have changed for us.
Yeah.
So 25 years ago, I drove out to Los Angeles from Connecticut,
Oh, that's fun.
and then ended up driving back too. And when we went out, we didn't have GPS. Okay, I didn't have MapQuest. I don't even know if that was.
You had a map.
I literally had a Rand McNally, you know, those big Rand McNally books. Okay, and it had each state, and I had to trace my way through it, right? And you know, you figure out the route yourself. Like you go, okay, and I just okay, take this highway, this highway, this highway, and there was a specific place I was going in Los Angeles. It was in West LA. Now, I'd never been
West LA.
so I didn't know how to get there or how to get around. But I looked at the map and I said, okay, I go this way, and that was it. Like, there's no one going, turn left. Like
half
none of
a mile.
that, yeah. And 1.2 miles, turn left onto Sepulveda Boulevard. Like, that wasn't a thing. Like, you had to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so for fun, about a year ago, I was at my parents' house because I left from my parents' house when I went there the first time. I decided I'm going to put in the directions on my GPS to get to that spot in Los Angeles that I was going to, just to see what it told me.
Yeah.
And it was the same exact route that we came. Same exact route. Like everything, like the highways changes, once you get off, like where you go. And the only differences were in the fact that we had stops because it goes straight through this. No human's going to do that. Well, maybe some humans will do that, but not this one. But that's like, you're right. Like we were able to do things on our own before, and we became reliant on the technology, addicted to it in some cases. Sometimes this is guilt as anybody else with it.
We're all guilty.
Mhm.
You know, it's a thing that, you know, we all use, we all do. But I think as, you know, you're mentioning about critical thinking skills and teaching critical thinking skills, and that's actually something we're going to have a discussion when we talk about education reform. That's a major topic for that. But you also mentioned librarians, and perhaps that's a way where just school systems are dumping librarians left and right. Like they're just getting rid of.
Well, isn't there something about the librarians in Bridgeport? I know that there's something like the funding to Bridgeport. I mean, they're not getting enough funding for library.
Yeah,
I've seen it on some conversations.
There's a bunch of school districts that
There's a bunch of school districts that have been like having librarians. Like they might have had like 2 library media specialists at like a certain school, and now they're going down to 1, or like at the lower grades, they're doing away with them like completely, which I think is foolish because like at the lower grades, like those kids are going to classes, they are checking out books because like at the elementary school age, like your visit to library media big studies is to learn about how to use a library.
Yeah.
Still. And then like it's like the other stuff like the technology and stuff like that. So, you know, and I'm wearing this wasn't planned. They, you know,
books save lives.
Books save lives, and it's like protect libraries and, you know, books. Like there's this whole thing with like book banning and the dismantling of education. It's all a way to create a less educated populace.
That's right.
So that like
that's right. That's exactly what it's intended.
But that's the intent there is to make sure that like people will just then like I go back to the 1984 and it's
the book,
not the year.
Yes, not the year, the book.
Turns out the year was a harbinger, but
and it's like they're trying to get us to a point where it's like the government is whatever the government says, it must be true.
Right.
And it's like, no.
It depends on your version.
Depends upon
who your government
who your government is.
Depends on who your government
but
is.
I mean, like, if we are, as a populace, choosing not to elect the most qualified or the overqualified, as we, you know, talked about. Women.
I mean, some men too.
Right, but like
and some men,
yes.
Some men. But like you know, we're making those decisions and then we're ending up with basically I called him Trumpy this weekend because I was like, he's literally like Humpty Dumpty, like with like sitting on the wall, like a cracked egg with his little crown. And I'm like, this just, you know, if we're not going to educate ourselves, or if we're not going to trust teachers, librarians, scientists, you know, other experts, experts like that,
right.
like we become very easily manipulative.
Yeah, what you're trying to say.
Yeah, you know, like that's the thing here, and it's like education is a vaccine to manipulation.
I love that.
Yes.
I want to say one more thing about the books just before we leave the topic, because I'm a book person and I've actually started buying physical books again because I want to expand my library, especially after there was a report this past week.
Did you see
about the AI eating books, and not just any books, but rare and vintage
out of print
books, and they're not just, you know, scanning them. There's apparently there's a machine you can scan them without destroying them, but it's much faster just to cut the binding, feed them in a machine, and then throw them out. And I'm enraged. And like, that's why I'm buying books again.
Oh, that is so fucking appalling. Oh my God. I mean, I don't own any ebooks at all. All my books are physical books.
Okay.
It's like, here's why, because for me, it's almost a tactile experience, right? So you get a new book. You get a new book and you open up the book You get the smell of it.
Yes.
See, I bought
There's
a
a
candle literally for that purpose. Because
A candle that smells like
it
books.
smells like
But you
books.
can't really. Oh, you can't smell. Oh, I was gonna
The
say you can't
candle-
read them. Can't.
No, you can't
but-
read a candle. But
I mean, I
like,
guess it is.
I mean, because like I have dyslexia and I have ADHD.
Yeah.
So like I rely on ebooks because like I
Yeah.
change the font to open dyslexic, or like I rely on audiobooks because
Yeah.
I
Oh, yeah.
have to do
of course.
a million other things. But I mean, we call them shelf trophies. Like when you buy the book after you've read the book.
Yeah, it's like, I
I
have this one.
my shelf trophies, but it's like, there. When a book gets banned, I immediately put that in my cart.
I have a list of books that the books I'm now buying.
Yeah.
They're books that it's not the books I read for fun. It's the books I read. I'm buying because I must have these books, like 1984, for
Mhm.
example.
Yeah.
Although I already own 1984, but yeah, it's just I want to make sure that there are hard copies of these in the world that are being protected, even in my own little way.
I kind of do that stuff too. In fact, I buy books all the time.
Yeah.
I don't always go to Barnes and Noble and buy my books, but Rain do. Sometimes I'll go to eBay and buy them off of eBay.
Yeah.
Thrift shops.
Thrift
Shops,
shops.
the book barn is.
I was just at the book barn the other day.
Yeah.
My wife and I went down to the book barn on Friday. We were down there, and I got myself 3 books while I was there. And she she asked me how many books I was going to get. I said, maybe like 3 or something. She goes, you're going to like 4 or 5. And I ended up getting 3 because I had group pop. But anyway, but realistically, before we go, there's one positive thing I want to put out. Okay, and see what you guys think. So like we're looking at all of this terrible shit, the death of expertise, and what the real consequences of this can be on us. But there's one thing that I kind of gravitate to, and it's an anecdotal thing. It is not empirical research, so that's probably not helpful for our point of our conversation here. But
that's that expertise then.
It's not an expertise thing. It's anecdotal. So I'm using anecdotal evidence to give us faith on expertise and actual real evidence. So if someone has real evidence, please present. But if you go onto YouTube and you look at science videos, okay, Mark Rober is a good
Oh my
example.
God, I love Mark Rober.
And there are others. And there are ones that start almost like he could be the entryway into where people look at the others. The science videos that come out by actual scientists have a lot of views, have a lot of subscribers, and a lot of them are younger people. Me, my son is one of them. My son watches all of those stuff. All of those videos.
Yes,
He watches all of that material. And I know he's not alone. Like that, you look at there's millions of views on stuff. And yes, it's pop science, in a lot of cases. It's like, how do I make this, this empty soda can go fly 50 feet in the air or whatever, some kind of goofy shit like that. But the thing is that they adopt the real science to see it. It was sort of like how Mythbusters used to do the same kind of thing. Then they would break a myth, but they would show you methodology doing it. Mr. Wizard back.
I love Mr. Wizard.
So that's popular science and all that stuff. And they go, okay, well, that's great. How does this fit in? And to me, those types of things for younger people, especially, sort of trigger an interest in how something works. In order to find out how something works, you have to kind of like get into it and find out. Like, you can't really rely on Mike Lindell to tell you how the hell this happens. But to me, it just shows that, and like I say, it's kind of just a grain of hopefulness that I have that people aren't turning their brains off completely, that the curiosity still exists and the curiosity to want to know more. And while that's not going to save the day today because there's so much more that has to be done, it shows, I think, like, okay, there's the slivers, the tiniest sliver of hope that something good can come of all of this. And, what we really have to do is understand that the resuscitation of expertise isn't going to happen overnight. This is a generational shift that has to take place.
I just want to know one quick thing.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned curiosity.
Yeah.
And I think that that's actually a lot of people lose curiosity as they get older. They don't have time to curious.
Yeah, right.
And I think curiosity and expertise are intertwined. And
Yeah.
I think that we focus a lot on education and kids and fixing, their path
Right.
forward. That we as adults have to also re-engage our own curiosity.
Yeah.
And, keep teaching ourselves. We shouldn't stop learning.
So
Right.
if you're listening, maybe you should schedule an hour a week where you just be curious.
I like
Yes.
that. I love it.
One time
Yes.
and go be curious about something and deep dive and just,
Yeah.
And go to a library to do it.
Yes.
get those public library cards, collect them go.
I've got mine. You have a library card?
I do.
I know
do too.
you. I know
Yeah,
you.
you know I do.
I go out down to my library. I go there every so often, and I'll just go around and read on books. In fact,
The randomness of actually going in a library, same as a
Yeah.
bookstore, though. But there's that
Yeah.
randomness, that curiosity.
yeah.
What am I going to discover?
Yes, exactly.
great.
Exactly. I actually feel bad when people don't have that. Like they'll go to a place like that, the library. I look for the oldest books that they have there. That's actually what I do. I'll look for the oldest thing. Like if they've got old ass book, and you see that was published in like the late 19th century. My library has. Okay, nobody know this. Okay, so this is the last little thing. It's the last little thing
Yeah,
here.
sorry.
So
We can maybe do a whole segment on library.
oh yeah,
We're going
Yeah,
to.
so Theodore Roosevelt wrote a book called it's about the War of 1812. It was called the Naval War of 1812, and he wrote it. It was his first book he wrote. He was like, I know, very young, 21 or something like that when he wrote it. And my library in Watertown, Connecticut, has a first edition of this book
Wow.
in the shelves. It's not in good condition, but it's a first. They don't
Like,
they
do you have to
didn't
use
know they had it.
really?
It hasn't been taken. I looked in the back. It hasn't been taken out since the 1930s. But it's sitting there in the shelves just like any other book. I was just looking around. And I'm like, oh shit!
Gloves on.
Yeah. I said, I got it. I just said because the binding was all messed up, so it was just written on there. And I pull it out and I just do it, and I look, and it's a first edition. I said, holy shit, this is a first edition. I brought it up to the librarian. I said, this is the first edition of this book, and it said he was surprised by it. I said, I'm going to do a little more research, make sure that this
It's
is
actually
it is the
authentic,
first. I said, but you can look at the copyright date. There's no like second printing. It's like and it's old as hell. And that's the thing is that those libraries will give you surprises that you don't really know about. So if you want to consider yourself you're going to do your own research, and you might find yourself learning things that you can't find on the internet.
Yeah.
See it in physical form right there with. All right, so I guess we'll end it on that. So thank you everybody for joining us this week. Next week we'll have another episode featuring the three of us and maybe some special guests. Take care.
Bye.